Chris Mackowski of Emerging Civil War, behind the camera. In front of the camera is my friend Dana Shoaf with the National Civil War Museum.
That's okay. Everybody gets. It's the National Museum of Civil War Medicine.
I swear that was going to come out of my mouth.
Yeah, it's all right. People get tripped up all the time. Half the time I do too. So.
You've been doing some great stuff at the museum.
Oh, well, thanks. I mean, I haven't been there that long. I started in November of 23. I keep telling people it's 24, but it was 23. And, of course, before that I was with Civil War Times, and that didn't end well because I won't go into detail, but it's no longer in existence. So I'm fortunate that I got this position as Director of Interpretation. And it's a great time to join the museum because I walked in just as it was beginning a extensive redesign of all the galleries. And one of my main jobs there is to sort of oversee that as it goes forward and help shape it with the staff that's there. You know, everybody's contributing. But we're going to be telling the stories that we've told that people like. But, since those exhibits went out in 2000, 25 years have passed. And there's been a tremendous change in the historiography of the Civil War, the way we discuss the conflict, and more information has been found out about medical knowledge in the Civil War. So it's time to freshen it up for sure, and add some, try to broaden the approach actually, and bring in some new stories as well as keeping the old ones people like.
Well, and I find that people are endlessly fascinated by Civil War medicine. It's a topic people want to hear about.
Well, I said this is kind of what I've been saying to people. I've been in this Civil War game for a while now, and I'm not, I know a decent amount of stuff about the Civil War, and then I went to the medical museum, and I'm like, I don't know anything about the medical aspect of this conflict. And it's fascinating. There are rich stories there, and I think, people always say, well, how does the past inform the present? It's really easy to draw direct lines from the medical practices and evolution of the war to present day and how it impacts us. Because just quickly, the United States Army didn't use ambulances before the conflict, and they weren't really known in civilian life. And immediately after the war, ambulances began to spread throughout communities in America, ambulance services. Hospitals were very uncommon, and it was where people went to die, and most medical care was done in home. Hospitals, I don't know, dozens are built by both Union and Confederate forces. Hospitals become fixtures of course, starting in large urban areas, but will spread throughout the country after the Civil War. Those are just two examples of things that really get going during the conflict, yeah.
My dear late friend Meg Groening, when she was working on her Aftermath of Battle book, and she really noticed the sorts of injuries that soldiers today being very similar to soldiers from the Civil War in particular because of amputations and those sorts of things.
Yeah, it is interesting how, because of some of these explosive devices that our troops now encounter in these conflicts, that amputations are, I hate to say becoming more common, but I guess that's what the case is. And of course, the difference today between now and the Civil War is that you're going to survive the amputation today, and the prosthetics are so well developed today. And the prosthetic industry really comes out of the Civil War as well, so yeah.
Now, you downplayed a second ago, you've only been there a little bit, but I've noticed a huge increase in visibility for the museum since you've been there. You've just been doing a lot of very innovative things to raise the profile and be more visible. Tell me about kind of your overall approach to that.
Well, first of all, it's a team effort. The executive director of the museum is David Price. And that's one of the things he wanted me to do when he brought me there. And it hasn't been quite a year yet, I don't think, that Melissa Wynn, who was my partner on the magazine, also joined the team. And Melissa And I think people know Melissa and I did a lot of social media stuff when we were with the magazine, and we're trying to replicate that with the museum because we do want to raise the presence of the museum because we have this amazing story. And I guess, my philosophy is just get out there and get going, try to speak at conferences. Melissa today is actually at Ben Lomond I'm going to get the county wrong, somewhere there in, I'm not sure if is it Prince?
Prince William.
Prince William. And there's an event there today, and she set up there for the museum. We've been at Central Virginia Battlefield Trust conferences, and we just did a video with the American Battlefield Trust that's gotten a lot of interest. I still encounter people that didn't know, we exist. They're like, I didn't know there was a museum there. So it's important to get out and sort of raise the flag and let people know, because we got a good location between Gettysburg, Antietam, DC. So we're kind of centrally located in beautiful Frederick for people to come visit us.
So if folks haven't been to the museum, or maybe it's time for them to come back again,
right?
How would you recommend they experience the museum?
Well, the museum, it takes people through the process of how soldiers were recruited and brought into this conflict. And then we spend a lot of time talking about how camp is actually the deadliest place in the Civil War because disease will sweep through the ranks, and how that problem will start to inspire sanitary reforms. We also focus a lot on the 3-stage system that was put in place by Jonathan Letterman. And Letterman actually will study the Crimean War because the Europeans use a very similar 3-stage system where you have a first aid station very close to the front line to just do initial stop the bleeding, get someone stable, and then they are sent to a field hospital just out of shot range, ideally, near the battlefields. And once the soldiers are stable enough, they then go to general hospitals. These are more permanent hospitals in repurposed buildings. For example, Frederick is the general hospital center for the Battle of Antietam for the northern side, and any captured Confederates as well that are wounded. And they repurpose churches and large buildings, but they're buildings, not tents. They're better situated for holding on and helping these guys recover. And then once these fellas, generally speaking, are well enough to leave the general hospital, then they can go home or to finish their recuperation, or maybe even rejoin their units. If you made it to a general hospital in the Civil War, this is pretty surprising, you had a 90% chance of surviving. You've gone through an ordeal to get there, but they learned so much during the Civil War. What's frustrating is they just didn't quite get germ theory yet. They didn't understand germ theory. It was just sort of so new that people were dismissive of it. But they understand a lot of other stuff, like make sure the hospitals are clean, have good air circulation. They're aware of that, and make sure the wounded get good dietary needs, have those fulfilled. So they make a lot of changes, and really, I think my biggest, in a large sense, is not seeing these surgeons as sort of cruel and indifferent, but really struggling to improve the situation and often just being overwhelmed with the task at hand. And that's where things break down. Yeah.
Jonathan Letterman, I think one of the great superheroes of American history,
He is, and he's not well known, relatively speaking. He actually will kind of get pushed aside. There's always political machinations, and I'm going to be talking about it here at this McCormick Civil War Conference, but very briefly, George McClellan becomes commander of the Army of the Potomac, and William Hammond is the new young Surgeon General of the United States. And Hammond was friends with Jonathan Letterman before the Civil War. Letterman had gone to school at medical college that McClellan's dad ran, so they all kind of knew each other. And Hammond, we would consider him progressive. These men are all in their 40s. They're younger. And so Hammond will appoint Letterman as the medical director of the Army of the Potomac. And, you know, Letterman will jump right in and bring a lot of reforms about that will eventually spread throughout the entire United States Army, not just the Army of the Potomac. But we all know McClellan goes away eventually. Hammond will be forced aside because the old guard of surgeons dislikes him for many reasons. One, they think he jumped too highly into that position. So he will get replaced. And when he leaves, Letterman sort of loses his top cover, and he will be sent to be the supervisor of hospitals in the Department of Susquehanna, which is a backwater, and he'll actually leave the military in 1864. Wow. And he will die shortly after the war. He dies young in San Francisco. So he writes a memoir, but, you know, he's not around to speak at veteran reunions and do all the sort of things that veterans did to kind of keep their name out there and get more attention. Yeah.
So Dana, would you like to give folks a pitch to come and see you?
Please come and see our museum. We're a ways away from actually starting construction on the galleries, but come see us, check us out. 48 East Patrick Street, civilwarmed.org is our website. We're not even at $10 we charge less than $10 admission. So, you know, it's an affordable visit. Get the medical history, and also, you know, check out our YouTube channel. We've got stuff on there, and we have a speaker series that I hope you can participate in next year. And that's on Saturdays. We have speakers. We have a double-decker bus tour we just put together of the sites in Frederick itself. So we've got a lot going on. So if you're out visiting the battlefields, make sure you swing by Frederick, enjoy something in one of the great restaurants, and come by the museum.
Wow. Well, Dana, thanks so much for taking some time to talk
Thank
with us
you.
today.
I appreciate it, Chris. I really do. Thank you.